I'm Chris Heilmann. I'm from Mozilla. I live in England, so I speak fast. If I'm too fast, just wave your hands and throw stuff at me. I'm used to that by now, so it's all going to be fine. Today I'm going to talk to you about Firefox OS and how it actually changed HTML5 and how we built a new operating system that is a truly worldwide operating system, which a lot of others don't do because, yeah, it's much too easier to make money in one market rather than trying to understand a worldwide market out there. So, I work for Mozilla, and Mozilla is a worldwide company. We have offices in like 8 different locations. We've got contributors from, I think it's like 43 different countries, and like half of what we do is written by people from outside the corporation. So we understand that people have different needs and people have different wants in different parts of the world. When we, about 2 years ago now, said we're going to do an operating system for a mobile device, and we're going to do it for the markets where the others don't go, the emerging markets, as it's so called, you know, Brazil, Southeast Asia, Africa. We wanted to bring connectivity to people who don't have it yet. And a lot of people started to like, yeah, why do you do this? There's no money in that. There's no point in that. The point is that Mozilla exists to bring the free and open web to people. And I find this very strange that people use the opportunity of an open, interconnected network worldwide where you can be a voice, where you can be somebody that other people listen to, and people abuse it by putting like stupid images up there and hating each other. And I don't get this, because in countries where people are like, oh, you got a phone, this is amazing, and we get rather bored with them. I mean, people don't like desktops and laptops anymore. These are old school, so let's protect my $20 haircut with my $2,000 laptop, because that's the right thing to do. But the main thing is that in the last years, computation and using the internet moved from desktop computers to laptop computers to netbooks, then we forgot about netbooks again, and then we went directly to mobile phones. Now everything is in the non-emerging markets, everything is about smartphones and tablets. Now it's going into wearables. All these wonderful things that cost a lot of money get outdated really quickly, and we can sell more of them. Yes, this is innovation, let's do more of that. So we thought, how do we disrupt this? How do we make sure that people in countries where people don't have much money still have a smartphone that is connected to the internet and gives them the same opportunities that other people have? And we looked at how people are using their systems. We looked at how people are using their machines and what they're doing online. And we found out that when people keep telling us, like, oh, everything rather than an iPhone 5 is not fast enough, or that screen needs to be bigger and I can't watch an HD film on my phone, this is just toys. A lot of people use them for communicating. They want to go on Facebook, they want to go on Twitter, they want to play a few games, but they don't have to be 3D shooter games. They could be something like 2048, which just went nuts, and everybody's playing it continuously. So I live in London, and London is probably the place that is one of the most cosmopolitan places I've ever been in. I've been here for 15 years and it doesn't feel like it. Because my neighborhood is Algerian, the other side is Hasidic Jewish, I'm next to the Arsenal football stadium, so you got drunk English people, you got everything you ever want. And England is not a country that is cheap. Anybody who tries to get a flat there or buy a coffee realizes it's not a country where actually people have a lot of money and money to spare. But when I look at my neighborhoods, this is what these shops look like. This is the kind of phones that people sell to each other. Some of these phones were even not stolen, not many, but a lot. But you see people buying these things in 2014. And you would think that nobody needs these kind of things any longer, except for air hostesses and people on trains, because they actually last much longer and they don't break. But these things are still in existence, and this is what we wanted to replace. With Firefox OS, we didn't want to go head-to-head with iOS and Android, because we don't have Apple's money, we don't have Google's money. We just wanted to be an alternative for people who cannot even afford an iPhone. When you go to Brazil and you go into a taxi and you have your phone on your lap, the taxi driver says, I don't drive you. Hide the phone first, otherwise in the first red light you're going to get kidnapped. That's the kind of things that I have experienced. I'm like, holy, what? This phone is like 2 years old. In America, people look at me like, what do you have? So the biggest things that people want to have from a smartphone in a third world country, an emerging country, is battery life. Because there's not power plugs everywhere. You want to have the battery to last for a long, long time. And I've got a Nexus 4. It lasts 12 hours, 13 hours tops. That's not good enough. I mean, the old Nokia, if you're like, hey, it's 6 months now, I might need a new charger here, but this is before that. So people want this. We want to have the experiences, but we also don't want to have much battery drainage. People also want to have connectivity that doesn't expect you to be on a fast connection. Connections are breaking up all the time, which means, of course, that your things should work offline, but even more, it should mean that your applications are not big. I find this hilarious that when I download a 50 meg game on Android and a new level comes out because it's, for example, St. Patrick's Day and the little gamer is now a leprechaun, I have to download 50 meg again. What? That's a sprite. Load the new sprite instead and leave the rest of the code alone. But we don't do that in closed environments, and we don't do that with packaged applications. So we try to find a way to make this happen. This is my brother's connection in Germany, and he pays a lot of money for that. It's really outrageous. Of course, people want to work offline. When we said we're going to use an operating system that is built on HTML5, people are going like, okay, so you've got to be online all the time. No, HTML5 can work offline quite nicely. It doesn't work offline in operating systems that make a lot of money by selling you native applications for some reason. Might be that the browser hasn't updated or something like that. But you can use app cache, you can use local storage, you can use IndexedDB, you can make your applications work offline. And that is super, super important. An app that doesn't work offline is not an app. Why would I install something when I could go to the web and actually look at it? Why would I go through the pain of actually having something on my phone, give it some of my SD card, when it doesn't work offline? What's the point of that thing? At least put as much data as you can offline, and then I've got a happy app and I want to use it. The other big problem is, of course, you could buy an iPhone, bring it to like, for example, Montenegro, bring it to Venezuela, and then you try to buy anything and it tells you, oh, your credit card is not American. Or, oh, you don't have a credit card. Without a credit card, I cannot buy anything on iTunes. I can go to the shop and buy somebody vouchers with my credit card, but if I'm a developer, I already have to pay $99 before I develop something. That's not right. That's not what we had when we invented the internet. Like, I loved the internet from the first day on, 1996, when I saw it the first time, because I'm like, I don't have to ask anybody to write code and give it out to the world. I don't have to market myself and go into a marketplace and pay things before I can make money with the things that I do. Why do we give that up? That doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe it weeds out a lot of people that shouldn't be on a marketplace, but I find it unfair that you have to pay and that you have to have a credit card. Because credit cards are not easy to get in a lot of countries. And try to buy something with a Visa card in Germany. Like, no, we take EC card and S card. What is that? Well, it's for German banks. Yeah, I live in England, I'm not getting those, so these 700 euro, I don't have them on me in cash. Yeah, only credit cards don't work. But on the web, everybody wants to have a credit card. My best is that when you try the iTunes store, you try to buy something from the American store, you can type in any zip code that is not numeric, and you can still buy it on your card. If you buy two things, your card bounces and you cannot do anything. So we have to hack the system to buy things, and that does not make sense to me. The other, of course, is that the credit cards are not easy to monitor. So I have my credit card connected with my phone. My kid starts playing some games. Next morning, I all of a sudden have 600 euro less because they needed new levels. That's not right either. So what we have in Firefox OS, or what we thought about, was having billing on the SIM card. So you can either get the things that you buy on your phone on your telephone bill, or you can buy a SIM card with 50 euro on it, give it to your kid, that's all you get. There's no chance that they can spend more money than the one that you put on the card. And that makes so much more sense to me in terms of controlling ourselves as well, because a lot of gaming is just addiction, and people just buy new things instead of needing them. Like, I played a lot of, for example, Temple Run. And yeah, in the end, when I realized how much time I spend on this, okay, I spent some money to get to another level, but 2 months later, I'm like, why did I do this? I could have had a sandwich. That doesn't make any sense, but people spend a lot of it on it. And everybody you talk to has something to say. And everybody I talk to, you should be allowed to say something. And should be able to go on the web and get a voice. should be able to go on the web and tell the world what their government is doing, should be able to go on the web and find out information that schools don't give them. And that's what the internet is about. It's a read-write medium. And with mobile devices and with closed environments, we found we're getting more and more into a consumption medium. People just consume things. They don't do much. Yes, they upvote. They put a comment there. They say lol. They put a filter on a photo. But the real creation, the writing, the development, the form factor of a phone doesn't really work that way. The web enabled us to do that. Anybody can become a writer. You find out some weird things. When we did UX research in Brazil and looked over people's shoulders what they did, everybody wanted a radio. People listen to the radio on their mobile device because they don't buy MP3s, they don't buy music, but they want to listen to the radio, and you can have that in your ears and your phone is not visible. Whereas if you have a music player, you keep getting it out and showing people your phone and then it gets stolen. Whereas like just listening to the radio is what people wanted. So we had to find a JavaScript API to connect to radio FM. That was great because every mobile device has an FM transmitter in it. And it's normally not used for anything, but now we actually can let people listen to radio without having to stream it and to stream it over an expensive data stream. And people are busy. Why should I learn a new platform every half year? Why should I have to re-educate myself to become an Android developer or an iOS developer when I already have 10 years of experience building things for the web? Yeah, there was somebody on GitHub who didn't actually respond to a pull request because his country just has a revolution at the moment. It's an okay excuse not to get to a pull request, I think. But we are busy. Why, as an engineer, do I have to relearn technology all the time just because another closed environment is successful right now? Imagine all the people that bet on WML or iNode a few years ago. Well, that was a great investment, wasn't it? So, what are the benefits of HTML5? What is the benefit of the web as a technology platform? What was the thing that made us actually rethink HTML and turn it into HTML5 back then? Well, first of all, it's an inbuilt distribution, the web. I don't have to go into a marketplace. I don't have to beg the marketplace to put my application in there. I can put a politically, not incorrect, but politically messaging application on the web. Nobody can take it down. The iTunes store can tell me, no, we don't allow that kind of content. Which is not right. Give people a voice. Let people talk. Give people discussion points. Simple technology is used by lots of developers. I mean, I can teach you HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in a day, easily. When the first thing in a bad connected country is I get told you need this 6 gig SDK and IDE before you even write your first line of code. Okay, I'm starting downloading now. In 6 weeks' time, I can write my first line of code. That's not right. The environment is there. Why don't we use it? Evolution of existing practices. We've been doing web development for a long time. We haven't done web app development for a long time, but it's nothing insurmountable. It's really easy to do. In essence, it's easier than a web interface because at least I have an environment that I can control in terms of size. I can also control in terms of functionality, and people cannot rotate my buttons any way they want to. It's open, independent, and standardized. And the last thing is the most important. Yesterday, Microsoft announced, the day before yesterday, Microsoft announced that Windows XP is not supported any longer. And we don't have to care about IE6 any longer. Which of course is a lie. We still have to care about it because lots of government websites only run on IE6. Every cache point in America, every ATM works on Windows XP. Great, no security updates for that anymore. There's still no problem coming our way there. But the standardization is the super important thing. Internet Explorer 6 was a pain for web developers for so many years, not because it was a bad browser, but because it was a stake in the ground, where Microsoft said, this is the last browser to be the perfect browser ever. You don't need to write for any other. And we all wrote applications that only worked on one browser. And then we started complaining for 15 years that this browser is terrible and nobody upgrades. Because they used our software from before. They couldn't switch to another browser because it wouldn't work in another one. So we had the same problem if you write only for WebKit, if you write only for Chrome, if you write only for Firefox. We want you to write HTML5 applications. Firefox OS gives you insight into the hardware and access to the hardware like no other platform does. But don't write for Firefox only, please. People can use whatever browser they have out there, and there's great browsers out there, so please support them all. Now, HTML5 started promising. This was the keynote when the iPhone got out and Steve Jobs was on stage, and he said, no SDK required. It's HTML5, Safari is the best browser on this planet. He's entitled to his opinion. And you don't need any other SDK. You don't need any other technology. You can access the maps, you can take photos, everything is working in Safari. And I was sitting there watching that streaming live, and I'm like, finally, somebody's doing that. As much as we say Apple is closed and evil and terrible, they're the ones that make HTML5 work, because the iPhone was the thing that everybody wanted. And a lot of innovation of HTML5 came from the iPhone. Sadly enough, the no SDK required, and writing everything in HTML5 vanished rather quickly. So we need to do something about this. Lockout is a terrible thing. When you read the specs of HTML5, or you read books, you actually go through some tutorials, you see all these cool things. I want to use all of that. Class list instead of writing my own add class, has class, and remove class. Local storage, like required form validation. Input type required. The browser will never send that thing to the server if it's not filled out. Great, I don't have to write a JavaScript validation for those when I have to write a server validation anyways. Except then you go to iOS, Safari, Opera Mini, or Android browser, and none of them supports it. We make the same mistake that Internet Explorer 6 and Windows XP was. We have a stock browser on a certain operating system that doesn't get updated until the operating system gets updated. This is a bad idea. We want these new technologies to flourish, so we need the browsers to update. I shouldn't have to ask for delicious pizza. I should have to ask for pizza. This is at the airport in Frankfurt, and I'm really wondering what happens if you just ask for pizza. I expect pizza to be delicious, right? I expect an HTML5 platform to support HTML5. And not like, oh no, that's not possible, so please learn C#, please learn Java before you actually can use that kind of stuff. No, it's in the specs, look. You guys signed that off. You said like you're an HTML5 platform. We also, redundancy is another big problem. Why should I, as a publisher, have to write my game on Android, then on iOS, then on HTML5, then on Windows, then on whatever next platform comes out there, Oculus Rift or whatever? Why should I have to do that continuously? I don't want to, it's technology. It's HTML5 can run on these other platforms, or can be converted to these other platforms. This is when you get a rental car in America. They give you a key and an extra key, and these remote controls for the car to open them, and an extra one, on a ring that cannot be opened. This thing is bigger than most cars, and you get it and basically have it keep in your pocket the whole time. And what's the reason for that? I guess so they can charge you when you lose 4 of them or something, I don't know. And when you look at the apps that are happening right now and getting people excited, they're not that intensive. I mean, something like Flappy Bird became a runaway success. It cannot be repeated. You can make 50 Flappy things now and people will not care anymore. But this is the kind of stuff that I write in code exercises when I teach people JavaScript for gaming. This is not a game that needs the coolest, newest phone out there. It can be written very well performant and other things. The same with Snapchat. So the things that people really are using are not the ones that are too intensive. So we can do them in technologies that we already have. So let's fix some of the HTML5 issues that we have out there. We have a lot of them. Every technology moves on. Every technology has mistakes. So we had to find something to do that. So this is what Firefox OS, the devices that you can buy in the shops, the tablet that's coming in the shops. Don't know why I got the slide in there. But what did we do already? Because a lot of HTML5, when you go on stage at conference, like, hey, we got an HTML5 platform for you. It's amazing. Here's our SDK. It's going to come out soon. And it's all vaporware. You never see it coming. You just put effort in. You win a hackathon. Awesome. When do I get the phone? Oh no, we don't release that any longer. So we're out in 14 countries: Spain, Poland, Venezuela, Colombia, Peru, Uruguay, Mexico, Brazil, and so on and so forth. A lot of them in Eastern Europe. A lot of them in South America. The places that don't have iOS, that don't have Android, in an affordable manner, in a newer version of Android. 7 mobile operator partners and 3 hardware partners, and none of these are just sellers. All of them are on the project with us and write code. All of them have dedicated engineers on the project because the whole project is open source. And I think that's super important. It's very easy to sell a technology with partners, but if the partners have no stake in it, the thing will get dropped really, really quickly when something goes wrong. So with this, even when something would happen to Mozilla ever, our partners could keep Firefox OS alive because it's open source and out there and maintained by everybody, not just by us. Hardware options, who cares? Aim at emerging markets, low-end markets, and aim to be an alternative to feature phones. We want people to get their first smartphone. So when you take a Firefox OS device and an iPhone 5 next to each other and compare them bit to bit, you're comparing a family carrier with a Formula 1 car. Yes, the Formula 1 car is faster, but if you go shopping and try to buy some furniture, you will find that the family carrier is the better option. Don't compare them one-to-one. Think about old feature phones that get replaced with smartphones. And it's open source, it's all on GitHub. The pricing was things like 69 euro, including 30 euro already for games on it, for the first phone. That was in Spain. So what's about the architecture? Underneath, we've got Linux and Gong, which is the same as in Android. So we actually feed back to the Android core that way, and we get the news updates from the Android as well. So we thought, why should we, on the low level, reinvent the wheel when there's already a Linux distribution out there, so we're using that one, which is great. Then on top of that, we got the Gecko rendering engine. On top of that, we got the web APIs, web activities. Gaia is the interface, so the desktop of the operating system itself is written in HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript. So you can build your own interface quite simply. I'm going to show that later. And third-party HTML5 apps. And all of those are in HTML5. So the only C is in the Linux core and in the Gecko rendering engine. Everything else is HTML5, JavaScript, CSS. You don't need to learn any other technologies for that. You can build everything that you want in these three languages. In essence, it's Android without the Java, and we put Firefox on there, and that made up Firefox OS. So if you're wondering about this, no Java, which means it can run on much, much slower hardware. It's much less memory intensive than Android is. It's predictable HTML5 support because the browser is the operating system, so we cannot get out of sync with Firefox because that's what the operating system is. What about security? JavaScript is insecure. It's a very, very bad thing. Like the whole cross-domain access is a weird thing and was not thought through when it came out. So we needed to find a way to stop users to give applications access that they don't want to give. This is the wrong way of doing this. This is a screenshot of somebody with Chrome with every message like, do you want to allow this, do you want to allow that? And we're bad at that as well in Firefox. But sometimes we have to stop people from doing stupid things. But this is not scalable. This is not a good way of making HTML5 applications that are secure. So instead, we came up with an application manifest. You define your application as a JSON object. That's all it is to do. And you serve it with an application X manifest MIME header, and you basically put it on your server, and this is where we know this is an application. In this application, you point to the index.html or whatever your first HTML document is, and that one becomes your application. So that way we can differentiate between web content and application content to give you access to more of the hardware, to give you access to more local storage, and so on and so forth. There's 4 levels. There's web content, which is regular web content, so you can just put a frame in there and load your mobile-optimized site into an app layer. That one has all the things that HTML5 gives you that makes it happy, like offline functionality, local storage, accelerometer, get access to the camera, and not the camera, to the geolocation. All the things that you can do on the desktop, you can do in those as well. We've got installed web applications that get a bit more access. So you've got like more local storage. You can write things to the SD card, these kind of things. And we got privileged web applications that can do things like accessing the camera, can do things like accessing the storage SD card. And these applications get actually a security review and a packaging, the same with package applications. So you cannot change them all the time. We go through them, we make a hash of them, we validate them before they're executed on the device, so you cannot just inject new code after you've done that, which makes them more secure, but also allows you to access more things. But we cannot just allow any JavaScript to get, for example, access to the address book. And we got certified web applications. These are the ones that are the operating system that are written by Mozilla and partners. So there's a wiki page that defines all the app permissions and explains you the differences between those four. I don't want to go into those in details. They're not hard to understand, and you actually realize very quickly that it makes sense to give you access to only when we know that you are this application and not some other application that pretends to be you. The permissions model is something that you add to the manifest. So if, for example, you say, like, I want to have access to the contacts, and you have to tell us why. And I want to have access to the alarm system to set up alarms, and you describe why. So when our team looks at our partners team looks at the applications, they know a reason why you want to have an alarm. Not like, I want to have an alarm. Okay, if there's no reason for it, we don't let you. Because we want to know what your application does to need that extra access. Because a lot of malware in Android does this, like, yeah, I want to have access to everything, and we just want to play the game, we're like, yeah, whatever. Nobody reads these terms and condition things, but in the first step, we do that for you. They're all cross-platform. So if every platform that Firefox runs on, these applications run on. Full screen with more or less the same functionality. Of course, not all of it, but most of it. So you can run it on Linux, you can run it on Android, you can run it on Windows and on OS X. And on Windows and OS X, they show up in your dock, they show up in your start bar. They're just like any other application, much like Chrome applications are as well. So, and that's, I think, is good. End users shouldn't need to care if it's HTML5 or any other technology under it. They're just used to accessing applications in a certain way. So what are the web APIs that I talked about? The web APIs are the things that give you access to the hardware in a JavaScript manner. So instead of having to learn extra layers of complexity to read, for example, from a light sensor, we write these APIs, spec them up as an open specification with the one working group. So they're implemented in other browsers as well, like in Chrome, in Opera, and some of them in Internet Explorer already as well. And we share them with everybody out there because I think there's no point in learning 12 different APIs for 12 different platforms. So you got the vibration API, which vibrates the phone, screen orientation, all the kind of things you would expect. Push notifications, network information, are we connected, how fast are we connected? And all of these work like very simple JavaScript APIs that you would expect from something like jQuery or Backbone or Ember as well. So let's take a look at them. Battery status API. How much battery do I have left? Why is that interesting? I could, for example, realize that the phone is on its last moment and not show any animations. And make it better for the end user to use my application longer rather than just draining the battery without any usage. I can also tell them, hey, you're really low on battery, do you really want to start this new computation cycle with something that you did, or do you want to do that database search over 6,000 databases? This is what it looks like, battery navigator.battery. That one works on the desktop as well. You can type that in your command line if you wanted to in the DevTools. And you then have the battery level, which is percentage between 0 and 1. You have discharging time, a charging time, and you get events fired on when something happens. So if I disconnect my laptop, for example, and it goes into the battery, it will change the level change, the charging change, and the charging time change events. So I can listen to them. I don't have to actually do that myself. The battery tells me when something goes wrong with it. The vibration API is very simple, navigator.vibrate 1000, and that one vibrates it for a second. Or you give it an array, you say like 200 milliseconds vibrate, 100 milliseconds pause, 200 milliseconds vibrate, 100 milliseconds pause. First thing, of course, we did with this, a Morse code generator, because that's what we do with phones, right? But interestingly enough, people are like, why do I need vibration? It's just for warning signs. But for example, if a map API, which somebody wrote, a map app, that I can keep in my pocket when I'm cycling, and it vibrates twice when I have to turn left on the next intersection, it vibrates once, and I turn right. That's great. I don't have to sit on my bicycle and look at my phone anymore, or have it in my ear. So think about these things that hardware gives us and what you can do with them. Network information. Are we connected? Is the connection bandwidth more than 0, and is the connection metered? Metered connections means the user has 50 meg a day for free, and then it gets very, very expensive. So that one actually allows people to say like, okay, you could download all the avatar images, or you could just get the usernames. Do you want to waste all your money, or do you just want to contact your friends? We can do that now with JavaScript. Page visibility shows you if the application is currently used or currently not used. So that's the same with tab visibility on the desktop. So why show a massive animation when the tab is actually not the active one at the moment? Stop doing that. If you use request animation frame, it automatically does that for you. So that's a really, really good win there as well. So adding a listener visibility change, if the document is hidden, then the app is hidden. If not, it's not hidden, it's being used at the moment. So when you do a pull request to get data, if the app is hidden, don't pull it. What's the point? It just costs that person connectivity and battery and all the things that I said in emerging markets are super expensive. Push notifications, I didn't put the code in there. It basically means that you can have your application dormant or hibernated, and you send a push notification and then the application wakes up, which is of course the best thing that you can do with an application, because it doesn't run in the background, it doesn't use up thread, it doesn't use up RAM, it just uses it when it needs it. Privileged apps, the ones that you actually package up and put a hash together. It has device storage API, browser API, you can serve inside your app if you wanted to. TCP sockets, very important for chat clients. Contacts API and System XHR. System XHR means cross-domain XHR with a chorus-enabled server. So much for buzzwords in one sentence. Contacts API, create a new contact, new Moz contact named Tom. Okay, the contacts are saved, there was a success handler or an error handler. As simple as that. Create a new contact that way, rather than having to talk to another application. The certified applications are the operating system, the calendar, the dialer app, the messaging app, and the browser itself. So these things you cannot change. You can debug though. You can take a look at them in the debugger if you want to learn from your application how we've done the other applications, which is another thing that not many people do. Now, if you don't want to use web APIs and you still want to have a camera access, what can you do? We did something called Web Activities. That is like Web Intents, except it's still available. And it works like Intents on Android does as well. So instead of making your application access the camera, all you say is, hey, I want a photo. And then the end user can pick their favorite application to take a photo, and you get the photo back as a file blob. Why should I ask the user for permission to the address book when they could use the address book to pick an address for me? So I don't actually validate on behalf of the user, but allow the user to choose whatever they want. I can also write an application that is amazing for photography and can ask the user to install it as the app in the activities that other applications are calling. So it's a bit like right-click, open with, right-click, open always with, but on a JavaScript level. So if I wanted, for example, an image, I can just get it from the wallpapers, from the gallery, or from the camera. And the JavaScript for that is a new Moz activity named pick, and then you give it the image MIME type. And of course, you don't make a typo in there like I did, which is not good. And then you have an on-success handler, and you create an image, and you get the image as a file blob, and you just write it out into the image object, and you're done. That's as simple as getting an in-camera picture without having to access the camera, because the user goes either through the gallery or through the camera application and takes the photo for you. How do you distribute apps? How do I get my application found? I've written this great application, I want to have end users out there. Well, we have a marketplace. Everybody likes marketplaces. That's where end users, and we looked at them, that's where they really go. They don't go on the web and try to find an application sadly enough, because that system hasn't been promoted to people yet. Everybody thinks the marketplace is the only place where I can do that. I mean, I can download APKs on the web. A lot of people don't do it. I do it because it's easier in a lot of cases. But we also have an install from the web. If you don't like the marketplace and you don't want to list your application, you can install it from your site. So you have a successful news portal, for example. You wrote an app. You can have an install button there where you can install it directly onto Firefox OS or onto the desktop with Firefox as well. That's all you need to do. Once that's installed, you point to the manifest URL, and then you have an on-success handler and an on-error handler again as well. Great for testing. You don't have to put it in the marketplace and wait for 2 weeks for somebody to come back to you or say like, oh, you can only use it on 3 devices. I can use it on many devices I want now. Yeah, on many devices. Dynamic app search is a very interesting one. This is the search interface of Firefox OS. So instead of having to know the name of an application, I just can enter the name of a band, and it recognizes that these are actually, that's a band. So Groove Shark or SoundCloud or Spotify or others are applications that would show up. These are also localized. So in your country, other apps will show up, and in America. There's nothing more frustrating when you get told that the best app is an American one that's not being sold in your country. Well, thanks. And you see that any search goes through the application as well. So you don't have to download, install the application, retype your search. The search goes in, the application starts, you like the application, okay, install it for later. You don't like the application, discard it. So the mobile view of your application, the mobile HTML optimized view becomes your advertisement. And users don't need to know the name of your application. You don't have to pay money on t-shirts, stickers, TV ads, plush toys, and whatever to get to know the name of your application. Your application advertises itself by its functionality. And that is only possible because we can index the apps, because they're HTML5. It's like a website. It's like Google gives us great results because they can index the websites. And with applications, normally I cannot do that. What about development environment? Where do I get my SDK? Where do I have to buy my phone? The development environment is the environment that you already use, which is the browser. That's the same with Chrome apps, that's the same, it used to be the same with Air apps, funnily enough. But in our case, we have an app manager in the browser itself. So, what does that mean? It starts soon, I think? Cool. So, you start developer's app manager, and in the app manager, you then actually can start connecting your device. You connect your device with USB, it pairs with the computer and says like, oh, are you okay to do that? You say yes, you connect to it, and then your applications on the device are shown on your desktop and you can start developing. So you can point to an application on the web, or you can use a packaged application, which is just a folder on your hard drive. They both then go into the operating system just with the update button here, and you can start playing with them in the operating system itself and see how they perform on the device or the simulator. So the developer tools are the same ones that you use on desktop. So now you can actually say debug, it starts the application, and then it gives you the HTML of the application. It also gives you the CSS of the application, and it gives you full JavaScript control to set your debugging points, to inspect, to put like all kind of watch expressions in there, and all of that works like you would expect it normally. You also have a two-way communication. You can click on the device, and it would highlight it in the developer tools for you. So you don't have to do that like you needed to do in the past. You can change the CSS dynamically. Although this is a packaged application now, you can play with the CSS from your desktop, save it, put it back in your build script, and repackage your application. You don't have to go through debugging steps or republishing steps every time you do that. And here's the JavaScript debugging. Everything is HTML5 itself, so if we want to play with the home screen, for example, we can do that as well. So here we got round rectangular applications that look a bit like windows. So I can now change the font size of those and the variable size of it. You can see variables in CSS here, that's already supported in Firefox. Border radius 100%, I've got round ones. I put a white border around that, I change that. I can do whatever I want in CSS directly live and see the changes on the device without having to repackage, rebuild, send it on the device, whatever, have to load it from the web. I can do that offline. This was actually built offline on a train. And you can, without having to wait until you get home and you can connect it again, you can do that. You can do silly things like you can put borders around things and make some round, make the others not round, and then you can start animating them and basically showing you anything that you want to do in CSS is supported by the application. So now he's actually rotating those for some reason, but I don't know why. But that's what developers do when you give them a lot of opportunities. Now this is a device that you could actually buy online and you can actually use, but you don't need a device because if you just go for example, this is Firefox Nightly here. If I go to my tools and web developer app manager, I have a few applications running here already, and I can start the simulator with Firefox 1.3, and that one gives me the simulator in here, and I can do that directly on my desktop without having to wait until I buy my first phone. Because that's a big problem. Why should I have to buy the hardware that I'm working for? And you could see that now, for example, the color puzzle here. If I try this out and I go into debug, I can actually see the HTML, see the JavaScript, see all the things that the application does, and I could start playing it. So this was the green one here, or yellow in this case, and then blue. And And you can see all the changes live in the browser in the background as well. So that one allows you to build more or less 90% of your application on your desktop, and then later on you just put it on the phone and you see how the performance of the phone is. You really only need hardware to test the performance. Everything else can be done in the simulator. There's a few things that you can start from. There's a Firefox OS boilerplate API. This one has all the stubs for different web activities, so you just put your code where you want it to go, you delete the other buttons, and you make millions and you get out there. You can prototype with JS-Fiddle. JS-Fiddle actually has a /webapp manifest to the end of the URL, and you create a manifest. You can do /fxos HTML, you get an install button, and you can try out that fiddle that you're playing with right now as an application. Another very, very simple way to debug and help people out. What about building blocks? Everybody wants to know, how do application Firefox OS have to look? What do I need to do? Where is my library? Where's my SDK? We don't have any yet, because from the very beginning we said it's HTML5. There is no native look and feel. There is no way how it should be all the time. So we have to find a way around that. But we created the building Firefox OS, which shows you how the original apps that are the operating system have been built. So you got the outcome here in the HTML and the JavaScript and the CSS. So you can start using those and building applications with them. It's a very simple way of doing it. We also started a thing called Mozilla Brick that is using web components. So instead of having a DOM interaction with your applications, they become part of the rendering flow of the browser, and that way are much better for battery, much better for processors. So the way web components work, and the biggest, coolest thing right now, and I want every browser to support them, is that instead of having to know a lot of JavaScript and HTML, I just put an HTML thing in there. So I've got XFlipbox with two divs. I'm the front face and I'm the back face, and a toggle button, and then it switches from the front to the back automatically for you. All the CSS animations are in there. You can override them, but you can use the things that are out of the box there as well. So we got all these components for you to actually start applications just by writing XML-style HTML5, really, if you think about it. And Google is big in that as well. They just released a web component for Google login, for example, and that was not fun to implement on your own in JavaScript all the time. Just doing a Google login, and it will create the form for you. Awesome. That's exactly what I want to do. I want people to use what they're already using. Cordova, of course, is supported as well. A lot of people are using Cordova to start with to write iOS and Android applications, so we made Firefox OS also a target point of Cordova. Which is kind of bizarre, because Cordova is making HTML5 into native, and now we're making HTML5 into HTML5, but we're turning the cow path. People are using Cordova, why not? PhoneGap, if you don't know what Cordova is, it's basically PhoneGap is the product name, and Cordova is the engine. So Cordova is the open source thing that is the Apache thing, and PhoneGap is what Adobe owns, or something like that. So camera, context, device motion, geolocation, orientation, vibration. If you build an Android app or an iOS app with Cordova, you can push this out to Firefox OS with one button now as well. This is how you can install it locally if you wanted to, but build.phonegap.com is now supporting this as well. You don't need to build it yourself anymore. Camera API code would look like this. Navigator, camera, get picture, and then you get the image, you put the source to the source, and you got a destination, and you're done. So what's coming? More APIs, daily almost. Like, go to the wiki, find new APIs all the time. Fun things like Web NFC and Web USB. Universal server controller. What's controller? USB is a universal thing. Not universal at all. Once you start looking into the implementations, it's not fun. But we have people to do that for us right now. File handle API, keyboard support, calendars, all these kind of things coming in there. We also have an app maker that allows you to generate apps with drag and drop and then just publish them into the marketplace. So that's great for people who just want to build their first app for their football club or something like that and don't want to actually have a non-out-of-the-box thing. Where to get info? The developer hub is the first thing, marketplacefirefox.com/developers. There you find design guidelines, what makes a good HTML5 app. You find demo apps to download that are open source that you can actually just change and put the colors in and make your own app. And you find ways to build things. How do you write a manifest file? How do you validate the manifest file? and how to publish, how to get it into the marketplace, how billing works, how we actually can work together to actually make you money and have it hosted on our servers. The developer blog at hacksmozilla.org, we have lots and lots of posts there, almost daily. A lot of them are Firefox OS, so whatever happens new there that is usable now, that can be used, comes there. What is on the wiki is still brewing, so take care with that. I made a video series together with the guys from Telenor, and there we explained like what does it mean to have an HTML5 application, what's the manifest, how does the manager work, and so on and so forth. So this one is half an hour of your life where you could learn from beginning to end how to use it. Comes with demo code on GitHub as well, so you can play with that. The Firefox OS wiki is where dragons are. So this is where things are actually happening. It's also where you find how you can flash Firefox OS on devices that are not Firefox OS devices. Like any device that has the drivers open that runs, let me not lie, Jelly Bean or Ice Cream Sandwich even can run Firefox OS as well. So if you got some old Nexus 1s or Nexus S's lying around, you can flash them in Firefox OS. We're bringing out a developer device that's coming soon that you can order, and I don't know the price, really comes 90 euros, something like that. And that one is a 1 gig device. So that one is a beefy device that allows you to simulate slower ones on it as well if you wanted to. So there's a game company here who's working with us. I'm going to give that to them later on so they can actually play with that, and you can try your own apps on it here. It's a prototype. It's got my name on it. I know how to find you on eBay, so nobody steal it, please, because I have to pay for that myself then. So to wrap up, write HTML5 applications. I really don't care which platform. Please use HTML5. It has a right to be there. It empowers people worldwide. It is not only for the rich people in the Western world with the coolest, newest phones. Write Chrome apps. Write things for Tyson. Write things for Sailfish, Dula. Write things for Ubuntu, whatever you want to do. But give HTML5 a chance and give it a go, because it's actually important. And don't forget the basics of apps. The thing has to work offline, the thing shouldn't eat your battery, and the thing should do one thing well and not 10,000 things. A lot of people take their HTML5 and their website and put it in a container and then wonder why people don't like the HTML5 app. That's not an app, it's a website and an app. An app does a few things really, really well, and not everything at once. There's a whole list of applications that have been written for other platforms and have been converted to Firefox OS. Some of them using Emscripten, so I did LLVM bytecode and I turned it into JavaScript that way. Others just with PhoneGap or with BlackBerry WebWorks and so on and so forth. So you can go from anywhere into Firefox OS, and you can go from HTML5 to everywhere, and no other platform gives you that opportunity. And with that, thanks very much.